Right, now that you've got all the hardware set up for the PLC, we're going to look at the software. Now, the software from Mitsubishi, it's actually two types of software they use, okay? Um, it comes from the GX, and there's GX Developer and GX Works 2. Now, we're going to predominantly focus on GX Works 2. There's a little exercise that we use our assignment for GX Developer, and it's a little bit more for advanced operations, GX Developer, but for basic coding, basic ladder logic, even basic structure text, and other programming languages, we can use GX Works 2. So that's the one we're going to start with. It keeps it nice and simple. So this opens up the software first, and we want to open up a new project. We're going to do a simple project, okay? And we know it's the FX CPU. We've seen that written on the front of the PLC, FX, and we know the type is FXON. So make sure you select them too. If you don't have them selected properly, you won't be able to download the code onto your PLC and get it run properly. Then it just asks you for the language that you're going to code in. Is it going to be sequential flowchart, ladder logic, and that's what we're going for. Okay, and then we click OK. So it opens up a new, I suppose, project. A new project for us. Okay, in here is where we put all our code, and this is kind of all our feature tree for all our parameters and different control measures we can do. Now, before we even start coding, we've got to check that we're communicating correctly with the PLC, because cables could be damaged. We might not have it set up correctly, so it's very important just to start off with checking your connection. So we go into connection destination, and we can, we've got current connection, all connections. Both of them are the same. So you can click on connection 1. Then what we got to do is we got to come up here, and we're looking at the serial or USB connection. Okay, so it's not done with a USB cable, it's done with a serial RS232. So when you double click on this, we need to make sure that RS232 cable is included, okay, or selected. The COM port, now, most of these PCs that we use in college are just going to have one COM port, so we COM1. So select that, and the transmission speed, the baud rate needs to be 9.6. Click OK, and then we come over here and we do a quick connection test, just to make sure that we've got communication. Okay, so we've got communication. That means our cables are good, our PLC is good, it's receiving information. So any other problems from here on out shouldn't be to do with any of that, unless someone tampers with it. So really important, set up the connection and make sure that's good. So you can go back into your project in here, and as I was saying, the main things you're going to look at really is the main program. So that's where all the code's going to go, and you see you'll have this opened up. The main buttons we use, if you want to put in an input, you just click this here. It'll give you the input. You can either have the input as normally open, normally closed. There are two main ones we use. And inputs are labeled as X's. So we go X0. And if we want to put in an output, we can move our cursor over to this position, put in our output symbol, excuse me, that's the coil, and outputs are Y's, so we type in Y0. If you want to join them up horizontally, you can use that line, go across 10 spaces, that'll join up your line for you. If you need to do any branching off of it, you need to move your cursor into the branch position, and then you can set up some of these like vertical branches that you can join lines together and do different things with. Okay, if you need to delete any lines, you see that'll delete horizontal lines, that'll delete vertical lines. It can be a little bit tricky. You just need to make sure your cursor is in the right position to delete it. Okay, and it does it like that. And they're the main buttons you're going to use: your inputs, your outputs, branching in your lines. Okay, if you need to insert a new row, you can go up here and edit and insert new rows. You see it'll just shift everything down. This end line will always be there for you. Okay, that lets the program know lets the PLC know where your program is ended. So it's starting up here and it's ending down here. As we've said before, the whole idea of ladder logic is you have two rungs or rails, I suppose, power rails. This is your 24 volts, or your live power, I should say, and this is your ground supply over on the other side, and you're trying to connect one rail across to the other on this rung, this ladder rung, and once you get a flow going from left over to right, that will do a step, I suppose, in program for you. So you'll see here, power can get up to here. It's being blocked because X0 hasn't been pressed yet. If we press that button, all that will be able to flow over to Y0, and Y0 will become active. Okay. So that's just the basics of our ladder code. And that's how we set it up. Now you'll see also some important things just to bring to your attention. Everything in grey means your code hasn't been compiled yet. Okay, and what compiling your code means is that you're checking, have you been using proper sort of syntax or proper standards with your coding. So very important you build that, and it should all go white. Your code should be white. If there's any errors, it would pop it up and tell you that's some errors, and you'd need to fix it. So you always got to compile before you then download to your program. And in order to download code to your program, you go online. So you want to write this code to your PLC. When we're writing code to our PLC, just click parameter and program. So you're going to give it all the parameters, and you're going to download the program onto it. And then we're going to execute the program. Very important that your PLC is in that stop mode that we talked about, because if not, it would flash the error saying that it's still in run mode. So you let it download this code, let it run through the sort of sequence. It'll download the code in for you, and then when it gives you 100% and it says it's completed, you can then close these down, and that code will be inside your PLC. Another really important kind of tool that we have here is you can do a monitoring mode. So if you press F3 on your keyboard, I just can't remember where the button, maybe that's it there, is it? Simulation. F3 is the shortcut, but the button's around here somewhere that you can go into monitor mode. So once your PLC is connected, and if I just turn on or put my PLC into run mode, what happens here is the code will monitor for you. So if I actually switch the input X0 on my code, you'll see the way that's gone blue now. So it's saying that's closed. So it's letting power flow through, and then it's saying it's blue around Y0. So it's saying Y0's on. And if you actually looked at your PLC box itself, you would see that light come on. If I turn off the input, you'll see on monitoring mode, it's gone off. So that's a good kind of, you can run through your code and just test, is it working as you think before you go and build your system. So a little bit of kind of simulation. But bear in mind, your PLC must be in run mode, and it must be connected to the computer in the proper way. So they're the main kind of tools. Other things you need to do in your programs, just above your program settings, in your parameters, your global device comments are very important. So if you want to label any of your inputs, it's very important to label them. So your start button there could be X0. If you want to go onto your Ys, you got to actually type in Y0, then it brings a list of Ys there, and that will open up this here for you. So you can start adding in, start creating your IO list and putting labels beside it, so your program gets that bit easier to follow. You'll see when I look back, okay, they're not there just yet. If I remember correctly, I've got to turn them on. So I'm going to turn on my comments, and you'll see there, just puts little notes beside them, so you can read your program much easier. You can also add in statements as you go through, so you can add little kind of notes that will, I suppose, I might show you how to do that in another video because I can't remember just right now, but you can group kind of layers of code together and then have a summary statement for this kind of block of code is going to do this particular thing. So it gives a little statement beside it. But very important to have those labels there in your code, so that when you're going back to them, you know what X0 is, you know what Y0 is, and you get that in your global device comment. And we see we can label our X's our inputs, our Y's our outputs. If we go into our timers, if you type in T0, you can start listing your timers. You go into your counters, start from Z0 to your counters, and of course your markers as well, your flags, very important for them, and they will all then get populated. So that's pretty much the basics, making sure you've got your connection set up, how to put in some code, how to compile it, how to download it into your PLC, how to look at that monitoring mode, and also how to add in some comments on it, okay? And then you just save and you open your files the usual kind of way. All right, so hopefully that was good for you.